Back to the Future after a bit of a let's call it a rain delay because the baseball's going on right now and various teams are playing. Washington Nationals just I think getting ready to beat the Cubs. Like I'm a big baseball fan, which I'm not. But not being a baseball fan means that I have to have someone else here on the show with me tonight. You,
I
you,
am not a baseball fan either, by the way.
you guys get that right. So here we are. We have Warren Sklar. Hello, Warren. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Well, we had some serious technical issues before we started tonight, which is why we're like 10 minutes late. And so sorry.
No, you had technical issues. I just sat here and played around.
Okay. Well, do we have? Oh, we got two people. So apparently, two people. Here we go. We have Chase Griffin. Hi, Chase. How you doing? Thanks for being here. We have a main topic that we're going to talk about tonight was based on a comment from Sandra Davis, who was having some issues wondering about iCloud. So we're going to talk about iCloud tonight. And this was her comment, Warren. It took me this long to realize it, but where are all my documents on my MacBook Pro that are not in the cloud? The regular documents folder is gone. Or I guess I should have asked, is it now possible to save a document to your computer and not in the cloud? It looks like everything I save goes to the cloud. Well, the wonderful people at Mac to the Future, the Facebook page, were able to supply her with an answer. But before we get into what her answer was, um, let's talk a little bit about iCloud and how it works. iCloud is Apple's file syncing service meant to work across all platforms, similar to something like Google Drive and Dropbox and many others. One big difference between iCloud and many of those other services is that it is very Mac OS and iOS centric, meaning that many of the built in features and basic software for those two platforms have direct links to iCloud to make files and folders available on any connected device. Now, Warren, you have iCloud set up, right?
I do, yes.
And how exactly do you use it?
Um, so I have pretty much everything enabled on iCloud. I have iCloud photos turned back up. I have, I think I'm paying the $1.99 a month for the 50 gigs or 200. I might be a 200 gig plan. I don't know. One of the two. It's either 99 cents or $1.99. I got iCloud photos turned on, and I have iCloud Drive turned on. In the iCloud Drive, I have my documents and my desktop syncing to the iCloud. And on both my Macs, since I have a 512 gigabyte drive on both my Macs, I do not optimize storage. I have enough room for all my stuff. So both on iCloud Drive and my pictures, it's full downloads of everything, which is nice because then I have a way to make a separate backup copy of those two
Right.
time machines. I set up somebody yesterday who was out of space. So I put her in iCloud Drive and iPhoto or Photo Drive, iCloud Photo Drive, and did not keep full copies. I optimized storage on her device, which worked perfectly for her.
Well, was that a
So
question of storage, or was it just because?
she has a 2014 Pro Retina with 128 gig hard drive,
Hmm.
and I continually work on it to trim down what I can. But I finally said this is enough, so we agreed to pay a monthly fee to put her pictures and her documents and her desktop in the cloud.
Does she
Um,
have like multiple Macs, or was this her only Mac?
that's her only Mac. So for she is doing an iCloud backup, but for her, is she's still going to get the fully optimized to full resolution pictures in the cloud. If she ever wants them back, she can re-download them to a device that has a space. And she'll also her documents. Um, she has enough room. So what iCloud Drive will do is, if it has enough room to store the documents um, without any problem, it will do the full size documents. If it starts to run out of room, it will optimize it, and actually says it will
Compress it.
decompress it, but it also says it will re-download as needed. So documents you don't use for a while will not be stored locally on that device. It will be in a cloud, and then as soon as you click it, it beams down.
Well, that
So
actually seems something that people are a little bit confused about. Whether or not documents that they create on their local Macintosh, like, and this is assuming that, like maybe they'll have a desktop Mac and maybe they'll have a uh, laptop and maybe an iPad or an iPhone or something along those lines, and how that works when you're talking about, you create a file in Word or in Pages or Numbers or whatever, and when you save that document, where does it go? Is it there locally on your Mac, or is it going to iCloud? And and there's like all different kinds of ways that this can go. But before we talk about that, I now when you buy your Mac and you set up iCloud, there's the free option which gives you 5 gigs, and you can option as much as 2 terabytes through Apple for about $10 a month, which honestly is not a bad. I mean, it's not a great deal, but it's not all that bad. All files are encrypted both in iCloud during uploads and downloads. Some included functionality is contacts, Find My Mac or iOS device, calendar, mail, Safari bookmarks. And I always thought this was kind of cool. Current open browser. So if you've got, say, an Amazon window open in Safari, or, yeah, well, I guess it would have to be in Safari. In Safari, and you're out and about and you're on your phone and you want to see what it was you were looking at on that Amazon page, well, you can go right to it, and it'll open it up. Obviously, in the iPhone view, but it'll open it up in such a way that you can view the browser that's open on your Mac back at on your desktop Mac, which I think is kind of cool.
that's been
And
around.
yeah, and of course you've
Yeah.
got iWork, Keynote, Numbers and Pages, and Notes. Now, purchases made on any device in iTunes, links to every other device to make that content available. All the info created on multiple devices ready for you from iCloud on any connected device, even through Windows PCs, which is something that I do on a regular basis because where I work, of course, all we have are Windows PCs. But when I want to work at lunchtime or whatever on show notes, say for this or for the MyMac podcast, I can log into my iCloud account there at work on a Windows 7 box, bring up pages, bring up the notes, work on all this through the browser based version of iWork, and just get things done. Now, certain programs can make folders directly in your iCloud account, and all the files saved to that account are ready to be edited and saved on other devices apart from the computer that the original document was created in. So, Warren, if what's her name? I'm sorry, Sandra. Sandra creates a Word document, and she's working on it there on her desktop, and then she goes to the coffee shop, or God, I hate that analogy, but she goes out someplace. She has her iPad, and she has the mobile versions of Microsoft Office. She can open up Microsoft Office on her iPad, grab that file out of iCloud, and work on it there remotely. The same file that she started to work on her desktop. And these are some of the things that iCloud can do for you. And is this? Have you ever used it in this way?
Oh yeah. So when you enable iCloud documents, you essentially lose on that device your local documents folder. It won't be in your Finder anymore. And that's where people get confused, because the confusion really happens is when you go to Finder and under your favorites, all of a sudden, desktop and documents aren't listed there anymore. after you do this enabling. So that's where a lot of questions come. All of a sudden, there's another tab under favorites under your favorite bar called iCloud, and under there you have your iCloud Drive, desktop, and documents. So once you have that, and you have the documents and desktop folder under iCloud, anything you save there in either three of those places, iCloud Drive is going to be more or less the root of everything. If you look at your iCloud Drive, you'll actually see your documents, you'll see your desktop folders underneath there, along with your Mac apps I'm looking at now, such as numbers, pages, text editors, even there too. But you could put anything in there. You could put a Word document. You could put a graphic programs. Anything that you want, really, you could put in there. It takes up your iCloud storage space. So you don't want to stick in like a 2 gig movie. You could stick a 2 gig movie in that directory and have it
Yeah,
synced everywhere. But
because the limitations are you can't put in a file that's larger than 15 gigs, and you can't put in a file if it's going to exceed the maximum amount of storage that you're paying for or that you have in iCloud.
right. So you could put anything. You could put a Word file in there. You could put a Apple work file in there, whatever you want.
Yeah, for some
And
reason, I actually have like a Pixelmator folder in mine. I don't even know how it got there, but I've got a bunch of Pixelmator documents that of course I can't do anything with on my iPad because I don't. Yeah, there's a Pixelmator iOS app I think, but I
there
don't
might be. I mean, but you could create a folder, and if nothing's stopping you from creating a folder in there and
for
putting whatever
anything.
you want there. Yeah. So with the iPad and the iPhone now app, what they've done is they used to have something called iCloud Drive on the iOS device. They renamed it to Files, more or less. And the
Yeah,
Files is the same thing, except it has integration with other cloud storages, such as Dropbox and Google Drive and things like that. But basically, it's the same thing. You can go to the Files directory, find a file that you made, and put in there, click on it, and it's going to open it up on that device, granted that there's something that could open it up on that device. And
yeah.
it'll work.
Now
Yeah.
the one thing to remember in all of this is if you have this enabled and you have all of your documents in whatever program it is that you use on a regular basis going, saving all your files to iCloud. And for whatever reason, you lose internet connectivity, either on the computer that you created that file or you're in your car and you've got a Wi-Fi only iPad and you're not connected. Well, you can't get to those files until you are actually connected to the internet because that's where everything lives.
There, yes and no. It depends. If you go into on the Mac preferences and then iCloud and go under top on iCloud Drive, there is a couple of options in there as far as what kind of actually it will tell you what documents and apps store in the iCloud. And if Pixelmator is in there, that's why you would have it. But in any case, there's an optimized Mac storage in there, which means that if you don't have that checked, those files will still live on that device, at least on your Mac, if you don't have Wi-Fi. So I'm not sure about the phone yet, but as far as the Mac goes, if you created a file uh, on your on your iPad,
Mm-hmm.
saved it into iCloud Drive, if your Mac had enough wireless internet to get that file, it's going to copy that directly to your hard drive and put it on there, unless optimized storage is not checked. Is checked, then
So
it may or may not.
if you don't check optimized Mac storage, then it still keeps a copy of all of this stuff on your local device.
Absolutely,
Okay,
one hundred
so
percent.
that's like a really important thing to remember if for whatever reason, and this would probably also work with iOS devices. So if you create a document on your iOS device and I'm not sure what the sequence is, but you can, you know, just just
Um,
because you have a device that can connect to the internet doesn't mean that it is a useless device if it isn't connected to the internet. So if you start a Word file on your iPad and you're not connected to the internet, once you actually become connected, it I believe it'll save it up to iCloud at that point. Is that correct?
it will with at least on the Mac and at least on your iOS device. If you created once you create something and it's connected to the internet, if you create a document or a file and it's connected to the internet, it's going the first thing it's going to do is upload it up to iCloud. That's it's as long as you're on Wi-Fi, just like a photo. So as long as you are on a Wi-Fi network, it will upload it to iCloud.
Okay.
Then at that point, if I'm at a coffee shop with my phone and my Mac is at the house, and my Mac's up and running with Wi-Fi running or the internet running, and I create a document and pages on iCloud.com or on my phone. In theory, if I come back, it will be on my Mac too in the same area. It will be on my other Mac too. As soon as if I boot up my other Mac, as soon as it connects to the network, it's going to push it down to it.
Okay. All right. Now remember as well that um, just because you have a file available to you doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to do anything with it. If you don't have a program on the device that you're trying to bring that file up in that can do something with that file or document, then there's really nothing you can do. You won't be able to make any changes. You
No,
have to have a program on the device that you're trying to bring that file or document up into that can do something with the document. So it's not a catch-all to be all for your mobile life as you're going around. Something I would love to see them do is similar to what Google did with the Chrome OS and kind of turn that into like a browser-based operating system.
mm,
And now the current iCloud version with Pages, Numbers, and um, Keynote is somewhat similar, and you've got a few other little apps. You've got Notes and Mail, and of course, I mean, some of the standard things. I would love to see Apple open that up for third-party developers to give us like more limited version. Kind of like what they do. It's the difference between the desktop version of Pages and the browser-based version of Pages that you'll see if you go into iCloud on like a Windows machine or some other machine that's not directly connected,
right.
and to just to allow third parties to come in and create browser-based programs that will allow you to do some of these things. I would love to see Apple go in that direction, and maybe that's kind of where they're going with iOS as far as the iPad goes, because if you look at iOS 11, you've got the iPhone version and the iPad version, and this is really one of the first times there's been a couple of things that have been different, but this is the first time that there are like major features in the iPad that you don't have for the iPhone simply because of the size of the screen.
Mhm.
So I would love to see something like that. But now getting back to what Sandra was saying, Ed is kind of comparing a lot of what iCloud does with iCloud Photos. You have a copy locally and a copy in the cloud. In turn, any other device with your Apple ID also has it in its documents, and deleting it locally probably deletes it from the cloud and subsequently the other locations with 30 days to change your mind, which is kind of a safety backup. And Sandra says that she doesn't need every document in the cloud. She wants to save photos in the pictures file. She only wants to do that with some documents. And Ed is suggesting that create a folder in iCloud Drive and drag stuff that you want on iCloud into that folder specifically. So you don't have the, what was that called? you don't have the optimized max storage turned on, and you're doing it more manually. So you're taking things that you know that you're going to want to have available to you on other devices, possibly on other platforms, and you're putting those things in manually. In the meantime, everything else that you've created locally is staying local. So I think that's kind of what Sandra was wanting. Um, and I
Yeah, I
think,
mean,
go ahead.
if if you don't, if you put something in a folder in your home directory that's either under documents or a desktop, it's going into the cloud if you have iCloud turned on, iCloud Drive. If you don't want it in there, you have to create another sub uh, subfolder under your home directory called not in cloud or whatever you want, and then you can put things in there if you don't want to go up to the cloud. That's really the only way to do it because there's no way to once you have iCloud Drive turned on, there's no way to tell it
Don't do
not
that and not to do
not to
this.
take some
Right.
and not the others. Yeah, so you can't do that. So it would have to be a separate folder to do that. Now,
Well, I mean,
if the
you could still do it with optimization turned on, but you would kind of have to force the programs that you use locally on your computer to not save it to a documents folder, because it's the documents folder that's kind of the key here. Just as the music folder was the key to iTunes, and the iPhoto and now Photos library folder was the key to sharing, up into iCloud all your pictures and other pieces of content and so on and so forth. The documents folder is what iCloud is using to sync between all of these different devices. So if Sandra created a document in whatever, but didn't necessarily want to push that up into iCloud, she would have to have a folder someplace other than the documents folder to save
right,
that in, and that would be the same whether or not she had optimized max storage turned on in iCloud preferences.
right, all optimized Mac storage really does is if you are running very low room, and I don't know what Mac thinks is low on space. Who knows? But at some point, they say you're running low on space, and if you are, they're going to actually look at the last access date of a lot of your documents in your document folder, and they are going to actually delete it off your local hard drive and keep it in the cloud. And as you said, compression, I'm sure, is in there too. But for the most part, if you have files that you're not using, they're not going to be on your local drive anymore. If you do a clone or if you do a time machine backup, they're not actually going to be there. They'll be in a cloud, but they won't be there. Um,
Remco likes your cuckoo clock, by the way.
yeah, no, so not. Yeah, it's all the way from it's Vienna. I think it's Vienna.
Yeah, I
So,
think we talked about that. Well, I don't think it was while we were live,
no,
um, but
I'm trying to
yeah,
get it,
we talked about that
but
last time. We were trying to set all this up.
I wear my special shirt too. Yeah, I'm thinking. There you
I've got my Johnny Cash, my
go. There you
Man
go.
in Black shirt on. Yeah, I'm gonna have to probably start wearing a hat just because I think the glare is like killing killing things here. So maybe it's too distracting. But
Brian,
that I think that kind of answers Sandra's question. One of the other things that she seemed to be worried about was um, iCloud security, and she's basically saying that when she talks to Apple, they're able to jump right into her iCloud and access her stuff very easily. She was worried about the possibility of misuse, and she used the analogy of storing personal papers in the closet of a friend. Now, she, of course, has the key, but then so does the friend. But
yeah,
that's not really how iCloud security works. I mean,
I,
everything, whatever it is that you're pushing up or bringing back down, everything is encrypted.
yeah, I don't know exactly what that means as far as Apple having the ability to jump into your iCloud. They don't. As far as I know, they anything iCloud support related, they basically will try to walk you through things to do that any user could do. But if you say they don't have a special access into your iCloud account, I, and if they do, then I don't know about it. They could, tell you where to go if you go
And
into
I'm sure they would
iCloud.com.
very much like to tell some people where to go.
I'm sure they do after people leave the store. They tell them where to go too. But they, you could go. There's, a lot of things are in iCloud.com that you could do. You could restore. I'm sure they get 100 calls a day about people saying they lost their contact or they lost contact. You could go into iCloud.com and there's a backup and restore, and contact is in there, bookmarks is in there. There's a whole bunch of things that you could restore on your own, but they can't do anything much else than what you see. So it's secure.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
think they can. I don't think they can see your documents. They may be able to see folders, but I don't think that they can see the actual documents that are inside. So
yeah,
if you delete a file that you didn't mean to delete and it's gone, they can't magically hit a button and make
no,
it come back.
but you can. There is a way
Up to 30
in
days.
iCloud.com that you could get back some of the things you deleted in your iCloud drive.
Right.
So, and that's what they'll tell you to do.
And then there was some stuff between Kenna and Ty talking about how Google works as compared to how iCloud works, where basically, the one thing to remember about Google is if you aren't the customer, you're the product. This is something that I think has been pushed over and over and over and over again, and for good reason. Google is anything that you give to Google, whether it's through email or just today. Uh, Someone that I know, and this was on Facebook, more of a friend of one of my sons, was talking about backing up his Android phone because he's
Um,
getting ready to get a new one and he wasn't quite sure how to do it. And I gave him some information that's not really relevant. But one of his other friends came in and was like, "Well, make sure you use Google Photos because it's great and it's free and blah blah blah. You can always get it everywhere." It's like, yeah, it's free as long as you don't mind Google going through it looking for ways to target ads towards you. I mean, this is what Google does. This is how Google makes most of its money through targeted advertising, and that doesn't make it bad. It doesn't make it good, but there is no such thing as a free lunch. I mean, even things like Facebook. Facebook is not free. Facebook is paid through advertisers who learn as much as they possibly can through all of the stuff that you voluntarily put into Facebook. So that's just how that works. You can't get away from it. If it's a free service, someone somewhere is paying. That's just how that works. Whoa.
right. I mean, I know a lot of people are concerned. Personally, I'm not.
No, I use a lot of Google
Yeah,
services.
my life isn't that exciting where I worry about it. And once in a while, Facebook or Amazon will pop up something that I don't like, and you just move on to the next thing. It's not the end of the world.
No.
Uh, but Apple, when you compare Apple to either Google and Amazon and Apple are all different in that respect, and they're all different from each other. Google is very AdWord based. They're going to try to sell your data to other companies to advertise. Amazon is very um, centric
Inward.
on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, inward. They're going to sell things that Amazon sells. Um, and Apple is very central
Well,
to its product.
it's outward focus because they include all of these services and don't and I mean they do charge for them. I mean, we were talking here about iCloud for the 2 terabyte storage
Yeah,
limit that I use. That's $120 a year.
yeah.
It's about $10 a month.
And they charge for the devices, and I
Sure,
mean,
but there's a reason why they focus so much of what they do when it comes to services on using Macs and using iPhones and using iPads and other Apple devices as compared to just saying, oh, well, we're going to make this available to Android and we're going to make this available to Windows, which they sort of do. Not so much iCloud and Android, but certainly iCloud through a browser in Windows because they want you to see how well it works together. They want you to become used to it. And if you become used to it and you like it, you'll go out and you'll buy that first Mac, or maybe you'll buy that first iPhone, or
Right.
decide that you don't need a computer like that anymore and you'll go strictly to an iPad. But Apple is trying to draw you in to the way that they see how uh, more along the lines of how they think computing should work for the average person. And if it works well for you, then chances are you're going to jump in with both feet and say, "Yeah, I'm going to get that Mac. I'm going to get that phone. I'm going to get that iPad." And and the thing is, if you look at Apple's retention as far as how often if that somebody buys an Apple thing, the next time that they need that same thing that they'll buy another one, it's like 90%, which is almost unheard of in consumer electronics. It's a crazy high number. So
Mhm.
if you have bought an iPhone, 90% of the time the next time you look for a phone, it's going to be another iPhone or another iPad or another Mac or whatever the Apple device is that you're currently using. And there's a reason, because it all mostly, not always, and this certainly it isn't perfect. It mostly all works very well together.
Yeah.
And because Apple controls both the hardware and the software and the services, they're able to do things that Microsoft can't. They're able to do things that Google can't. They're able to do things that Samsung and all the other Android phone makers can't. The only
And
thing
they're
that most of the Android phone makers have to differentiate themselves from one another is cost. So you have this
mhm.
constant race to the bottom of crap.
they're at a point now, and it's kind of hard to say, but other companies are trying to mimic what Apple's done with their their software. And just a couple of examples: Google Drive is now called Google Drive and Sync, and in theory, that there's a Mac client, there's a Windows client, um, there's probably an Android client. I don't know about iOS, but it does the same thing more or less as iCloud Drive. You will tell you what it will sync all your photos together, and it will sync all your documents and your desktop together to the point where if you have a Windows computer or a Mac computer or and use them, all your stuff is there. So they're catching up. They're trying to do the same thing. Microsoft just released something called Continue on PC, which is basically handoff for Microsoft. So that's you know something that people really love the Apple products for is coming to other platforms. Now, again, Apple does it better. Apple does it more securely, and uh, they don't harvest your data as much as Google does and Amazon. But
Well,
these
certainly
are
certainly not for external sources. I mean, let's not put a halo over Tim Cook's head, because
right,
Apple is certainly looking at you and at your data. I think the big difference is that they're using it for the most part internally and not pushing it out to the highest bidder.
right.
Okay. Um,
Good.
before
Uh,
we wrap it up tonight, let's see. We got 5 people over there. Woo! We got Brian Monroe, Jeff. I can always have a hard time with his name. Is it Drenton? Ten?
did you see? Did you
Dren-
see Jeff's picture? Jeff posted a really nice picture of him in 2009 and 2007. 2017 with an iPhone, and it's very scary. But it's very scary. So
I haven't seen it.
check it out when you
Is
get
that
that.
that's over on the Mac the Future page?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's going to give me nightmares. By the way.
We also have Brian. So I'm not wearing my glasses, so this is going to sound
Yes.
really awful.
Caraccio. Caraccio.
Carroccio.
Caraccio.
Apple equals seamless. And of course, Brian Monroe. Oh,
Corrosio.
Carroccio. Thank you. Yeah, I
There you
always like it when they're able to come back and give me the phonetics sound of spell out phonetically what their name sounds like. Like if you looked at mine, it would be Searle, so it'd be Serle as
go. Of
compared to
course,
the way it's spelled.
we have Ed is Sen.
Ison.
Is Sen. Okay.
Ison. I need to get Ed on here sometime. I think that would also be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Warren, if people wanted to get a hold of you, what would be the best way to do it?
Yeah, I'm always on Facebook. Just tag me or
Always?
something.
Always? Really? Never sleep?
Sometimes when sometimes when I'm driving, I'll try not to be on it. But
Yeah, talk about distracted driving. You can reach me, guy at mttfgo.com is the email. Mac Parrot is who I am on Twitter. And of course, you can reach me over also there on the Facebooks. Every single weekend, of course, I'm also doing the mymac.com podcast with Gazmaz over in the UK. We are now 8 episodes away from our 400th weekly show together. We started doing that back in 2009. We took it over from Tim, who was the originator of the podcast back in 2004. So yeah, we're 400 episodes. That's quite a bit. That is
you must
many,
be
many.
you must be a millionaire.
Yeah, because we're making so much money as being podcasters. But I think unless you got anything else, Warren, I think that's going to about do it for tonight.
Nope, we're
Are,
good.
are you good?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
I'm
So
good.
everyone, uh, don't know what's going to happen next week. I don't know if Warren will be on. I don't know if Ed will be on. I don't know if I'll do it by myself. It's a mystery. It is a mystery. But we shall, in one form or another, someone will be here. Probably. Probably. We'll see you then. Bye. Okay. So a little bit. What was? Oh, is that the picture there?
Yeah,
Oh my God, that is frightening.
yeah, that's right, man. Yeah,
That is
yeah,
really
man.
bad.